23rd regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. I'm glad you're all here today. Mr. Mokrahysky, do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
We do not.
To the board, I see none. And any emergency business this morning?
No.
Very quickly, we do have we have one time certain, I believe, on today's agenda, which is public recognition, or the 1:30, which is employee recognition. It's not really a time, it is a time certain, excuse me. So yeah, that's down the list. And I was talking with the Vice Chair Trieger earlier, and she and I both have engagements at the University of Oregon sometime around 4 o'clock today. So not that we'll be rushing things, but...
Chair Farr?
Yes.
We do have a time certain at 11 a.m. for executive session.
For executive session. Thank you so much. So we'll be gearing toward that. Then first thing on our item 3 on our regular agenda is public comment. We'll first entertain public comment to the Board of County Commissioners from those of you present in Harris Hall. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Keep an eye on the clock, which will be on the wall in front of you, this one to the left. At 30 seconds, you'll receive an audio alert that you have 30 seconds left to speak. At the conclusion of the 3 minutes, the mic will ask you to conclude and allow the next person to step forward and speak. Following the discussion, or excuse me, the testimony by people in Harris Hall, we'll have testimony from those online, at which point I'll return to Harris Hall to see if anyone else wishes to testify. Once again, you will have 3 minutes, and I'll say this right now, the people online, if you're listening online, you'll have an option. It'll be your option to show your camera. That is to say, you can turn your camera on or off when you provide online testimony. And for that testimony, the same rules apply, the same rules of engagement and decorum apply that apply in Harris Hall. So with that, we'll begin public testimony from those present in Harris Hall. First is Bill Compton, who will be followed by Charles Gillum. Mr. Compton, will you step to the mic, identify yourself, and... That's cool if you can, yeah, thanks. And begin your, as soon as you've identified yourself, your 3 minutes will begin.
Well, it's great to be in company of old friends, Bill Compton. And I'm excited because as a public servant over 20 years, serving Lane County by being an instructor in marketing and economics and finance, and now in retirement, I'm more tired, as you probably well know, in regards to doing public speaking both in Oregon and in around the country and internationally. So I'm pleased to be here this morning. Thank you for having me. You know, budgeting is a painful and oftentimes baneful experience. In fact, when you first spoke here a few weeks ago, it sounded that way in regards to limited resources versus, you know, emerging needs. Boy, do I know that. So I don't envy you with what you're having to do. I honestly don't. But I do appreciate that you're willing to step up and do that so that I don't have to and others. And so you're entrusted with that great and wonderful opportunity to use the limited resources that you have. You know, in this environment of shrinking resources, as we well know, and the emerging, what seems like ever emerging needs, hard decisions have to be made. And when I taught many years ago, teaching successful business people now, there were 3 driving principles that I taught in budgeting. First, you need to be guided by the necessities and the needs. Second, you need to be guided by the principles of good budgeting practices and the greatest of all priorities. Third, you need to look at the will and the mandate as public servants of Lane County, the will and the mandate of the people. And so, you know, it's interesting, the will and the mandate of the people, I pulled this offline, was very excited, I highlighted some things, and this is from your Lane County Strategic Plan for 2022-2024. And I want to quote Steve Mokrahysky. Did I get that one close?
Very good.
Good, thanks, Steve. I appreciated that. He says, and I think this is awesome, our new strategic plan will help us increase our overall financial stability while investing in the things that are most important to our residents. You're to be applauded for that statement. That's absolutely true as a public servant. I always said, parents, help me in my program. And so the need and necessity is great. Specifically, I want to speak about public safety, how painfully the need is great. The lowest ratio of deputies, almost the lowest ratio of deputies in the state of Oregon. The frontline deputies, 0.09 compared to Greater Oregon, 3.4. The principle of funding necessities, first driven by priorities. The priority mandated by the 2022-2024 survey that I went through is public safety, as I believe was found to be mandated by the recent levy that was passed by 79.39% of the people that voted. So, conclusion, it's time to make hard decisions. The good and the nice, which we would love to have, really needs to be overshadowed by the necessity and the mandate by our local public people. The finance of the priority and the mandate is public safety first.
Thank you, Mr. Compton.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And next in Harris Hall is Charles Gillum, who will be followed by Sherilyn Borkgren.
Hi, Charles Gillum, 34144 Del Monte Avenue, Eugene, Oregon. It's off of CV Loop Road out there by Mount Pisgah. I came to complain about the restricted build order for my neighborhood. It's in Mobile Life Estates. I got a 10-foot wide trailer by 40 feet long. I can't put anything larger on that lot with the current restrictions. Up until recently, we were able to put double wides on, but now we can't do anything bigger than what we have. That was it.
Thank you, Mr. Compton. Excuse me, Mr. Gillum. Thank you, Mr. Gillum. Next is Sherilyn Borkgren. Ms. Borkgren, are you in? Yes, you made it. Good. Who is the last person signed up in Harris Hall?
Imagine a community nestled near Mount Pisgah that you've invested in, that you call home, and you cannot build on it. You can't remodel. The community near Mount Pisgah has been imploring the land management for the last, I think, 2 years to change the restrictions that don't allow people to build. Now, their reasoning is that it's a flood zone. But the real threat are fires. If a fire was to break out in one of these old mobile homes, excuse me, the fire would spread very quickly. It might spread amongst all over the orchards up to Mount Pisgah. So these homes that people are living in, many of them have lead, asbestos, electrical wiring that's faulty that was put in 1965, and yet they are not allowed to take these homes out and put a better home in. These homes are not HUD qualified that are there. New homes would be HUD qualified, they could be raised. So if there is a flood, they would be safer. And the reasoning is from the Land Planning Commission that has been implored many times now to change the codes that are there, is that it's a 100-year flood zone, which means it may flood in 100 years, which also means they're ignoring the fact that a fire could break out at any time with these faulty electrical wirings. So we would like to ask you to please support the change of these codes so people can replace homes with newer HUD manufactured homes or stick homes or remodel, because there's no reasoning to not allow that at this time. And we could build a community that is safe, line trees, and we could have a vision. I'm sorry, I feel kind of nervous talking to you guys. So we just want to have a nice place to call home that's safe, that we don't feel is threatened by fires, and we aren't worried about the floods. I mean, if there's a flood, there's really nothing we can do, but we can do something about fire threats. And that is to take off the zoning that's on there now and to permit people to put in new homes and remodel. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Borkgren. That is the last person signed up in Harris Hall. Ms. Jones, do we have anyone signed up online?
Chair Farr, we do not have anyone signed up online at this time.
Thank you. Then I'll look around Harris Hall. Is anyone else in Harris Hall? Would anyone wish to provide testimony to the Board of County Commissioners this morning? I see no one. Then I will close public testimony. and move along to Commissioners' response to public comments and/or other issues and remonstrances. And I'll look to the Board of Commissioners. Vice Chair. Go ahead, Commissioner. Okay.
We got everybody.
It's those glasses we need, right?
I'll go from near to far then Commissioner Buck, followed by Commissioner Lovell.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming out to speak with us today. Appreciate your time. I wanted to speak specifically to our folks that live out in the Pisgah area. It's not unusual to have parks, mobile home parks, originally placed in areas that were otherwise very rural, on conditional use permits and spots that normally residential homes would never be built on, in areas like flood zones. And that puts many of them in a pickle like you are today. When you're in a flood zone like you are, generally FEMA puts that flood zone layer on, and that's not something that the county can change. I don't know what we could change. Certainly, that's a request that we can ask of our planning department if we can do anything. But generally, FEMA puts those flood plains on the maps, and we're required to abide by them. And then you have to layer that with state law as to what you can and cannot do. I've worked in mobile home parks for a very long time prior to becoming commissioner, and I can't imagine the frustration it is when you want to be able to rebuild or replace really housing that is substandard at today's level. And it was something that is newer and still live in the home that you have been living in for quite some time and you want to stay there. I would certainly be interested if there isn't anything the county can do to help, but there are those restrictions in place. The homes that would probably be renovated are probably much better for your health and safety overall. And I have worked out in that location before, and the state building restrictions were so challenging. Somebody else was trying to do the very same thing and was coming, was banging into the same rules and regulations that you are now. The need is clearly there. Absolutely would we want to update and be able to allow the new mobiles to come in so people could replace their housing and stay in their location. I'm just not sure how much we as a county have jurisdiction over being able to modify those rules. But I'm interested in knowing if we can or not, and I'm sure we could probably get some clarifying information on that. I thank you for bringing that up, because it has been something that I've been trying to work on for the last couple of years, but also just hitting those state and FEMA regulations as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Buck. Commissioner Lovell, followed by Vice Chair Trieger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I echo those words, the frustration that you might have that Commissioner Buck also echoed. And I'm one of those guys that don't take the first no as an answer, so I'm on your team. Anything we can do to help, I'm willing to put our influence, if we have any, on the table to help. Because I think, living in a neighborhood where you're restricted how you can remodel and how you can update and how you can live is pretty frustrating. And as a developer, I certainly understand that position. And thanks for coming, both of you for coming. Chuck, you didn't want to do it, but you did a great job, so appreciate you very much. Bill Compton made a statement that I thought was very apropos for the time we're in, is that budgeting is painful and baneful. I thought that was a very interesting statement. And that here we are in a cost-cutting mode, and Mr. Mokrzycki and Herb Voldman the other day at the budget meeting had said that, now we're in this cutting mode that happens to be the new normal, and, we need to be in a revenue mode. So I'm all about making hard decisions and finding the revenue that we need to properly fund public safety, because I believe, as a county commissioner representing Springfield, that public safety is absolutely absolutely the core to everything. Our community, the way we live, how we operate, how we treat each other. I think it's one of the largest things out there to support. And let me just tout our horn. We passed the levy by almost 80%, which I think is a great thing. The county is coming together saying that public safety is as important to them as we thought it was. I also want to say thanks for the commissioners that went to the celebration party. Not all of us can be in the same room at the same time, so I appreciate the commissioners that went and celebrated with the sheriff and tooted their horn about how well they did. I want to highlight a couple of people there. I want to have kudos to our sheriff, Cliff Harold. Hats off to that man. He has been one of those sheriffs that I would just love to buy a superhero cape for and let him wear it around the building, but maybe he won't wear that. But he went to over 40 different venues to speak directly face-to-face with people in the community. In fact, I went to one in Springfield where 3 people showed up, and he gave them all the time they needed, answered all of their questions, sat down with them, and is one of the best human beings I've ever seen on the planet, our Sheriff Harold. Cliff, Carl Wilkerson, the support staff, Tom, those guys that traveled with him. And I want to especially thank Becky, the sheriff's wife. Can I get an applause for the sheriff's wife in the audience? Come on. I mean, you know, that is, she was just there for thick and thin. And I just want to champion her because, you know, behind every good man, there's great women. So I just want to tell her that I thank you from the bottom of my heart. It was crucial that we passed this levy, and we passed it with 80%. So now let's take that momentum, and let's see where we can go with it. Finally, I want to announce the Springfield Drifters baseball team. Springfield Drifters were brought to Springfield by 2 very astute businessmen, Ike Olson and Kelly Richardson, who brought this collegiate wood bat league to Springfield. My wife and I went to an event last night to launch their season, and I'm going to give them a little shout out that they're looking for host families. If anyone out there wants to be a host family to an athlete, during the season starts June 2nd and goes, hopefully if they're in the championships, through the 2nd week of August. So if you have a room in your house and you have a kitchen that you don't use like I do. I have a kitchen in my house, but it's solely for resale. So I'm hoping to maybe sponsor one of these athletes that come into my house and knows how to cook. That'd be really great for my wife and I. But I just want to let you know that their season's starting next week. So Springfield, Oregon, Springfield Drifters, cheer them on. It's a great place to be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Lovell, I'm going to have to caution you, however. We asked for no public display of support or opposition for testimony in Harris Hall, so you're out of line. Asking for cheers for Becky. Oh, but I joined you, so I was out of line, too.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I was able to attend an event last night, a screening of a movie called Unzipped, which is about the homelessness crisis. It features the situation in Venice Beach, but it really is indicative of what's happening all over the country. There were a lot of parallels, even though that's a very unique community, to what we experience, particularly in our cities and the larger metro area here in Eugene. It was co-hosted and sponsored by Shelter Care, Square One Villages, and Pro Bono. And it just, it didn't really reveal anything new, but it put familiar information together in a new way for me that just, I really encourage anyone who can find that, whether online or find another community screening somewhere, Unzipped. It just really helps us look at the 360 issue of the crisis of not enough housing, of the wage gap relative to the cost of living, of community members who happen to live in a place at a given time making decisions that impact far more people than just them and last for decades, as well as public policy and the role of elected officials in addressing the crisis of the unhoused and the humanitarian crisis that brings, really. So I cannot recommend that movie highly enough, and really appreciate those 3 area nonprofits for hosting it. And our commenters this morning about the mobile home park is just another layer of, you know, how hard it is for folks who want to do the right thing and make a home to do that, whether that's because of neighbors' assumptions and opinions about the type of housing, whether it's federal, state, or local land use laws, whether it's financial constraints. There are just so many barriers and complexities to us all being able to live and thrive in communities. It's very complex, but at the end of the day, it's really just about everybody having the basic right to have safe, affordable shelter. So thank you for coming in for your comments. I also would really like to thank not only the sheriff and his team, but the voters for passing the public safety jail and youth public safety levy. Critically important. I spent a lot of time, I'll be very curious once the results are certified, to dig in a little bit to some precinct analysis, because of course countywide elections look really different as far as where the support is and where there may still be folks who have questions or a lack of understanding about the importance of a given initiative. So I'm looking forward to that. I spent a lot of time in my district at community and one-on-one conversations, bringing some folks along, and heard some really important feedback that I think we can't ignore as we move forward and figure out what does stable funding, what does a truly complete public safety system look like. And while it was challenging to have an organized oppositional campaign, it was important because it surfaced not only an evident lack of awareness about what we're actually doing at our jail and who is in our custody and why and what kind of control we have over that or don't, but also what some of the public has an appetite and an interest in supporting that might look different, or in my opinion, what we need is additional to. But as our first commenter said, budgets are constrained and it's always a challenge. So I really always support not fighting over crumbs and not making our budgeting a zero-sum game, but really starting with the needs and working back from there and seeing how much of them we can meet with what we have. So I will have an assignment later, Chair, that relates to the future of our public safety system and a way that we might begin to have some focused and organized conversations about the future, because campaigns are expensive and time-consuming, and the outcomes are unpredictable, and that's no way to shore up a critical service. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Trieger. Commissioner Senega.
Yeah, I think everything was covered very well here. We're all on the same page. I would just like to thank you guys for showing up and taking the couple of minutes to talk to us about it. I field these exact same calls daily. People are very frustrated, and our governor is pushing and pushing for this affordable housing, and then every time someone turns around, they're told no. So that is something that I think we can work on, and we need to set the bar for saying yes. What can we do to help people that are trying to build affordable housing? And we need to do our part at the county level. Bill Compton, once again, thanks for showing up, taking the time. We pushed that levy through, and I say it really was a team effort. Sheriff Harold, I think he's still on vacation, hopefully. He worked his tail off for that. And I would also like to thank the voters. That's a strong, strong number. And it really says where we are at the county level. And then this board, for every one of us to pull together and to push in our districts to get that over. I'm proud of this board. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I've got a few things to say. I had a few things to talk about in general, but I'm going to talk very specifically to the speakers today. And initially, I'll speak to Mr. Gillum and Ms. Borgren, living in mobile homes out near Mount Pisgah. And a quote, and this is something I really firmly believe in: "Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them." What we're talking about is outrageous rules that make it difficult for people to, as Commissioner Trieger has so eloquently stated, have the basic living security and safety. And we wring our hands about homelessness and houselessness, yet we pass rules and rules and rules in the good of the general public, flood control, floodplain perhaps, fire response perhaps, all important issues, but we fail to take notice of the people who are affected by it, people who are losing their homes, people whose homes are disintegrating into the ground because they're not allowed to upgrade them to their original standards at least. Now, in 1965, I came to America. And when we came to America, my mom and dad were able to buy a 1952 mobile home. It was old at the time. And we put it on Kennedy's Trailer Park, and we lived there. There were living in a single wide mobile home, 8 foot wide. And, but not long after that, my dad was able to scrape pennies together, and we bought a bit of property on the Trask River, and we moved that mobile home up there. Because we were able to improve that mobile home through the years, ultimately, my brother now lives in a nice stick-built home right on our farm property on the Trask River. It happened. It was able to happen, certainly inside the Trask River floodplain. There's no question about it. And sometime maybe there may be a flood that will affect the foundation or the people living in that house, probably with plenty of warning for him to get out of the house. But the fact is, we were able to do that in Tillamook County with a single wide mobile home that ultimately became a nice stick-built home on the very same footprint. So there's a long, long story, much to be told about that, about me coming to America and how we got here and what happened regarding ultimate land ownership and home ownership. But your story is very poignant to me. It rings true. I can taste it. It is salient. I understand. And do we suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or do we take arms against them? I suggest we take arms against them. And if rules are outrageous, let's see how we can change rules, because we have history in our community, in this country, of changing rules because they didn't make sense. Changing rules because the impact of the rule far outweighed the good that the rule provided. And that's where we are, and that's a discussion that we need to have regarding that. Back and to you, I'm sorry we allow no public support. I've already said that. And to you, Mr. Compton, I've known you for a lot of years, and almost every single thing I've ever heard you say is absolutely spot on correct, as is what you said today. We passed our levy with an 80% mandate, a plurality. It was a demand of the people that we provide the public safety. We have to live with that. We have to understand that that is what the people demand. How many of us here could believe that today, here in 2023, if you have a crime in progress in your home in Pleasant Hill, you can't expect a deputy to respond? Who would believe that? But that is the case. That's the situation we're in, because the deputies may be spread up to as far as Mackenzie Bridge or as far as Walton, because we only have 2 deputies covering the entire county the size of Connecticut. It is outrageous. And what's happened is through the years, we've gradually become accustomed to it, and it's like, you know, slowly boiling a monkey or whatever it is, just slowly boil a frog, I guess. You know, you just get accustomed to it until you get to an outrageous point where you say, how did we get to the point where people who have crime in progress can't expect a deputy to respond? Well, it's outrageous. Once again, outrageous fortune, slings and arrows. So we have work to do, Mr. Compton. We have work to do regarding making our homes livable and expanding our homes in the property that we believe that we could expand our homes on. We have work to do. Thank you very much for your public testimony this morning. To the Board of Commissioners, Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. I have one more thing that I neglected to mention in my first round, which was a really fun experience I had over the weekend. And this association, it's a national association, started in, I think, North Carolina, called Girls on the Run. And this association comes into elementary and middle school grades from 3rd to 8th grade and provides an after-school learning program for girls. And not only do they, over the course of 10 weeks, get prepared to run a 5K, they also have social emotional learning skills that will help them to navigate life in the future. And so over the weekend, we went up to Portland at a park and ran a 5K. And little did I know in the beginning, they needed a running buddy who was over the age of 16 that will also do a 5K with them. So here I am, and a lot of parents with their daughters running 3,000 girls with a running buddy, generally a parent of some kind, running in this park for 3.1 miles. And it was a blast. And the girls loved it. Each team dressed up, so you knew your team members were along the course. Some were faster than others. But I just want to lift up that particular nonprofit because they're doing some really, really good work for our girls in our schools. Thank you, Chair.
And the humility that you feel seeing kids so little running so much better than you can. That on me in the Butte one time. I was about 4 miles into it, and I thought I was running pretty good, and a kid no taller than my knees zipped on by me and beat me to the finish line. That's a great story. Thank you. Anything else from the board? Then we'll close Commissioner response, and we'll look at our consent calendar. We have in front of us a consent calendar, which is will be considered by a single motion by the Board of Commissioners. Every item on the consent calendar is reviewed by the board, and if you wish to review it at home or online, click on View Material. You'll see everything that we consider before placing this and keeping it on the consent calendar. If anything needed further discussion, it would have been pulled from the consent calendar as one of the items which will be considered in a secondary motion. So with that, we have the consent calendar. Do I have a motion? Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move approval of the consent calendar for Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023.
Second it?
Moved by Vice Chair Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Lovall. We have the consent calendar for May 23rd, 2023. Discussion to the motion. I'm seeing none. Call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. And we'll move along to item 6A, which is an item that was initially on the consent calendar but was pulled for separate discussion. This is Order 23-25-2307, and in the matter of approving one amendment with St. Vincent de Paul and delegating authority to the county administrator to sign the amendment. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to declare a conflict of interest. I am related to the executive director of St. Vincent de Paul, and so I am going to recuse myself from this vote. I'll go stand out in the hallway, and hopefully somebody can come let me in when you're all done. Thank you.
If 30 minutes has elapsed, we probably have thought about it.
She's running a 5K.
I think your legs hurt from that one. Very good. Then we have item 7A, which is, it's 6A, which is Order 23-25-2307. Do I have a motion? Vice Chair Trieger.
Chair, I'll move approval of Order 23-05-23-07 in the matter of approving one amendment with St. Vincent de Paul and delegating authority to the county administrator to sign the amendment.
I'll second it.
Moved by Vice Chair Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Lovall. We have Order 23-25-2307. Discussion to the motion. I'm seeing none. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Buck recused, excused. Recused, excused. Will someone call for Commissioner Buck? Thank you very much.
Bring her back from that first K.
Then we will move down the agenda to item 7A, which is our human resource item for the day, excuse me, which is a discussion setting goals for County Council Erin Pettigrew for her first 2023-24 performance review period, and an introduction to the Office of Legal Counsel's revised key performance measures. And with us today, we have Mr. Mokrahisi. I'm going to introduce the panel since one of the panel is an employee of the board, County Commissioners. We have the County Counsel, Erin Pettigrew, and Ms. Alana Holmes. Ms. Holmes, can you introduce your panel, please?
Chair, Commissioners, thank you. Yes, with me today, in addition to those you've called, is Ryan McBride, who is our talent manager in Human Resources, who partners greatly in supporting the board performance evaluation process. So he'll be here to assist in driving some of the slides that County Counsel Pettigrew will be speaking to today. Are you ready?
Please continue.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and start. Again, this agenda item is to provide an opportunity for County Counsel Pettigrew to meet, discuss, and identify with the board her goals for the upcoming performance review period ending on July 21st, 2024. And also, she'd like to share the Office of Legal Counsel's revised key performance measures with you today. So I'm just going to do a very abbreviated capture of the board memo that's online. I know it's been out there for folks to look at. Basically, on March 17th, 2020, the board passed a board order to adopt an annual performance review process for employees who report directly to the Board of County Commissioners. So that is the process that we utilize with your board employees, and we know both of those are sitting with you at the table with us here today. And on January 17th of 2023, County Council Pettigrew became our new county council and has begun her employment with us. So our annual performance evaluation process does align with our Lane County strategic plan's priority and goal of our people and organizational health. And that is a really critical component for ensuring our employees are engaged and feeling supported and have success in the work that they do. In a few moments, I'll turn to County Council Pettigrew so that she can cover some of the items that are in the attachment to the board order. However, after that and the discussion that the board has, I'm going to offer you two options. One, to instruct the Chief Human Resources Officer to move forward by creating a board order for consent calendar that will document County Council's goals for the initial review period that ends on July 21st, 2024, based on today's discussion. The second option is that the board may ask to continue the discussion about County Council's goals for the initial review period. Human Resources will recommend that the board instruct the Chief Human Resources Officer to move forward by creating a board order for consent calendar that will document County Council Pettigrew's goals for the initial performance review period ending on July 21st, 2024, based on today's discussion. So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Erin, County Council Pettigrew, so that she can go over a few of the items that she has prepared in support of the discussion with you today.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes, and thank you for being responsive to our discussion that we had last week. And Ms. Pettigrew, I'm going to state this for the board and for everybody. Today is a discussion of goals for your first review period. And that is what we're talking about today, is what the goals are for your first review period, which is, as Ms. Holmes has stated, it's, I believe, July 21st. Is that the date you stated? That is through July 21st from this moment in time, or whichever moment this is adopted, until July 21st, 2024. We do have an informal review that's slated sometime in August. So to the board, we do have a draft set of, in front of us, in the board packet, which was sent out, I believe, on Thursday, a draft set of proposed goals, which we can look at, we can amend, we can add to, we can smile at, whatever we wish to do. And by the end of the day today, my goal and my hope is that we do establish a set of goals that, as Ms. Holmes has stated, can be placed into a consent calendar for approval subsequent to this meeting. So, Ms. Pettigrew.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. It's nice to see you today. Mr. McBride, if you could please start the PowerPoint presentation and we can jump into some of those items. Thank you. Appreciate that, Commissioner Beck. So as Chair stated, we're really going to be talking about some general areas of future-looking goals for my performance review period ending in July 2024. But that is not designed to foreclose other suggestions or discussion about topics that could be considered within those performance goals for next year. Just as a little bit of history setting or ground setting, in March 14th of this year, we did have a discussion regarding upcoming performance evaluations and goals. And then after meeting with you at that time in March, as well as having some one-on-ones, discussions with our staff and many directors, I have outlined here what I view as the primary areas of focus for a leader in this new role. To set the stage, I'd like to review some of the work that I've been doing to date, and some of the things that I have learned along the way that have informed the framing of this slide here. So just to set the table, I have been here now for 89 business days, and it has been a very, very active period. I have set out those goals in three different buckets. The first focuses on providing high-quality legal support, both in terms of litigation and performance of general counsel work. The second is really focusing on the strength of our office and my role as a manager of that office, making sure that our team feels very well supported, that they're getting the professional development that they need, that we have adequate staffing and resources and the tools to get the job done. And the last relates to policies and practices, not only within our team, but also as they impact our work as a county as a whole. As the leader of our legal team, evaluating those policies and procedures has a broad impact. So I have some ideas about how we can do that in a thoughtful and meaningful way. So within the first bucket, in these first 89 days, I have been working to regularly establish meetings with our division directors and supervisors. I support our risk management team, our workers' comp team, and I look at emerging litigations and litigation issues and liabilities as they come up. This is a daily legal questions issue where I do problem solving across departments. I coordinate with all of our Office of Legal Counsel attorneys to ensure prompt delivery of legal assistance. I've been working on the development of outside counsel relationships in terms of our ongoing litigation, both that predated my arrival here, as well as developing new relationships with outside counsel that may be able to provide us with targeted support. I have been seeking opportunities to be a better collaborator and have our department be more integrated in departmental work so that we can be on the ground floor when new projects come up and we can be problem solvers and partners in those efforts. Working on a lot of active litigation. I have over 10 cases right now in my bucket, which I am doing primary lead litigator role for those cases. And they range from election matters to torts, to contract disputes, as well as telecom regulation. So a broad range of issues and topics and broad range of impact within our county. Also in progress right now in the bucket of sustaining a strong Office of Legal Counsel, we're currently in the process of hiring 2 attorneys, an administrative support supervisor position, and I'm collaborating with Lisa Lacey, our risk manager, to hire an admin support specialist, for claims work. So 4 individuals that we're hiring for a pretty small team right now, which is a big workload for all, and thank you to HR for your support and all that work. We're also looking at our critical office tools, which includes office space, as we are a growing team, and our technology upgrades, as well as our technology expansion, which I'll talk about in just a minute. In the Department of Accomplishments in the first 89 days, I have hired and onboarded 2 highly skilled attorneys. I have successfully advocated for the creation of 2 new positions covering key risk prevention areas. We have reorganized and reclassified key leadership positions. I have also established some new hiring practices within our office, and we've gotten a lot of really positive feedback from prospective hires that it was a really positive experience for them and that they had a really positive impression of Lane County as a whole at the completion of that hiring process. We have completed retention bonuses as well as made equity adjustments in my first few months here. In the area of reviewing and creating policies, practices, and procedures, I am actively in collaboration with county administration and our departments to devise better ways for our attorneys to serve our clients and to streamline the work. And this is in a broad range of areas. So looking at how we address building safety, how we approach our tax cases, how we do code enforcement, how we manage our public records. There are many ways in which we can improve the how we do things within our legal office so that we can reduce cost, reduce exposure, and make it easier for everyone doing the work, as well as increase public trust and confidence when we do it efficiently. We have done an office evaluation of our professional policies with the Office of the Professional Liability Fund, which is the insurance fund that is mandated insurance for all non-public attorneys within the Oregon State Bar. They luckily provide free assistance to all attorneys, and so they have been providing us with expert assistance in looking at how we do our business as a law firm and providing targeted advice on how to prevent risk for the county in terms of malpractice or other exposures. They have also provided our staff with a fantastic presentation on how to be an effective advocate, how to increase productivity, and how to manage common dockets. I'm working on a training manual as well as our timekeeping expectations to make sure that our timekeeping that is charged back to departments is accurate and reflects the work that we're doing. We are, as you know, very focused on improving our public records system, and I'm pleased to announce that yesterday we had a really well-attended presentation by Yufeng Luo, who is the Deputy Public Records Advocate for the state of Oregon. We had a number of people show up from our Lane County community of professionals, both in person and online. It was a really dynamic 2 hours of talking about the law, and maybe not the most exciting topic to most, but people were really active, engaged, and really great participation. So I'm very pleased pleased that that was well received. And Commissioner Lovall, thank you for attending our demo on our new case management software system and our public records system. I'm really excited about that as an opportunity for creating more transparency and visibility into our work as a county, documents that we create, and the information that the public is seeking. So that's another project we're actively looking at. Looking at lane manual revisions to legal services. And in the Department of Accomplishments, we have budgeted and launched our project for the case management system and the public records technology. We have developed a confidentiality policy for our non-attorney staff as well as law clerks and other volunteers. And we have created an office docket and a common calendar, as many other things as we are working on within this office. So I hope that that gives you some context of what I hope to talk about here, which I think touches on many of these, but these are more sort of our forward-looking, broader, long-term goals. And so I'll pause there and see if there are any questions, because I know that was quite a big download.
Thank you, Ms. Pettigrew. I'll look around for questions from the board. I'll bet there will be a couple before we're done, but not at this point. So continue, please.
Thank you, Chair. So first, looking at item 1 under high-quality legal support. The first is providing timely, well-researched, and collaborative counsel to client departments and electeds. I see this as sort of the core function of any attorney that is serving their client. And how I intend to evaluate that is both through our 360 evaluation of me personally, as well as examining how well our office is performing overall. Because as a manager of this office, we're looking at both my performance as an individual, but also my ability to lead a team and making sure that we're meeting those benchmarks as lawyers. And so in order to accomplish that, I would propose to the board that our office launch for the first time an annual survey of our clients, electeds, and some of our key outside stakeholders and customers to look at both my own individual performance as well as our performance as an office as a whole, looking at both risk, how we do our workers' compensation, analyst support work, as well as the legal work of our office, and public records, of course, which is a big part of our workload. And so that leads us to our second point, which is designing feedback mechanisms. I would also be very open to talking about other ways in which we can receive feedback beyond an annual survey of clients. That could be, a quarterly meet and greet with clients or with any of our electeds to talk about how we're doing as an office. As I said earlier, I am doing one-on-ones with department leaders and others within our community of professionals, but I welcome those ideas. Next is leveraging technology for a more efficient work in case management, client contacts, and the public records system. We have those 2 technology projects that are underway. The first really looks at our legal work. That is our general counsel work, litigation, daily legal questions. Right now, those are managed through essentially individual attorneys' Outlook accounts. And so we don't have data and we don't have information about the number of questions that are coming through our staff, as well as not necessarily holding those answers in a centralized place. A case management system can do a lot for our county in terms of looking at how our attorneys are spending their time, what kind of costs are going into those cases, and having a centralized way of looking at answers. It's often that a legal question has been asked before, and instead of reinventing the wheel, we can often look to our prior work, prior memos, prior answers to clients to come up with a quicker answer, and that saves money ultimately, both for the client and for the county. The public records system has a lot of great capabilities, which includes also cost saving to the public. I think, Commissioner Lovell, I know you were really interested too when we were talking about what the visibility would be for the public. And you may recall that one of the features of the case management system technology that we're looking at includes the ability of a member of the public who is seeking information for the first time to look at prior public records requests and search them. So it may be that if someone had asked the same question that they have, there is no delay in getting them that information or cost to that individual. It also saves our staff time and cost. That way they don't have to go searching for prior answers given. It also allows for central timekeeping so that our staff can recoup accurately the costs and time that we have spent in preparing public records requests and the answers to them. And it also provides for interaction to the requester in a more timely way that creates more visibility and ultimately lowers stress and frustration with the public body if there are delays or questions about process or procedure. So turning next to sustaining a strong Office of Legal Counsel, one of the things I think is really important as a leader of attorneys is to provide opportunities for growth and professional development. And I guess that's not true just of attorneys, that's true of all of our professional staff. I really want our office to be a place where someone can grow their career. And one part of that is expanding our technical skills. So far in my time here, we have created 2 new educational programs, one on public records, the other on professional case management and productivity from the Office of Professional Liability. And I'm looking for more opportunities to bring professionals into our workspace to provide training for our staff as well as our attorneys. And I want to encourage them to find those opportunities for both mentorship and education outside of our office as well. The second bullet is something that has come out of some discussions with department directors as well as our electeds, and that is creating a vision and purpose statement. Currently, our office does not have a vision or purpose statement or a mission statement, and I think that is really important as we think about where our work is going in the future, to have a touchstone, a place that expresses our values and our goals as legal professionals. And I really would welcome your input in what that might look like and how we could work to devise such a vision and purpose statement. We have completed part of an office reorganization, but it is still under works. We have a new leadership position within our administrative professional staff. And I am also working to create, and have created now with the support of HR, a deputy position for our office. And I am pleased to announce to you all today that Andrea Nagels has accepted the position of Deputy County Counsel. And so Andrea Nagels will be providing outstanding leadership in the area of general counsel work. And you know that she provides incredible legal service in labor and employment work. And she will be expanding her portfolio to include organization, collaboration, and support to make sure that we are tracking and delivering on all of our general counsel work, providing key mentorship for new lawyers as well as law clerks, and providing some creative assistance in terms of designing our work moving forward. So very pleased to have that new position in place and for Andrea's leadership in that area. We are also planning an Office of Legal Counsel staff retreat so that we can continue to build our positive office culture and team building. And finally, in the area of reviewing policies and practices, I intend to create a comprehensive manual for the Office of Legal Counsel. Right now, we do not have that. It is underway. And as we have brought on new attorneys and new staff, that has really come into focus as a need that we have as an office. I think it will be very important for any future transitions, as well as giving everyone a baseline of understanding about what our expectations are as an office, how we do things, and it may also help our clients in understanding our business. And lastly, I'd like to work toward building an equity framework for the legal and risk work of the department. I'm really pleased to join a county that has made such a commitment to equity within this organization, and I like to bring it home to our work in thinking about what equity looks like in a legal office and how we can examine our work through that lens of furthering equity while also maintaining our boundaries within the law and within policy and within our own practices as Lane County. As some of you may know, that is work that I have done in the past with the Oregon Judicial Department. I had the pleasure of working with the Chief Justice, then Chief Justice Walters, and the Oregon State Council on Inclusion and Fairness, the Supreme Court Council on Inclusion and Fairness, as well as their equity manager in developing an equity framework for the third branch. I was one of many people who were part of that effort, and it was ultimately adopted by then Chief Justice Walters. And I thought it was a really interesting experience thinking about how within a legal practice, within the law practice, how we bring questions of equity to the forefront. And I think our partners within our office are really excited about that opportunity as well. And I'm excited too for any collaboration from other departments as well as electeds and thinking about how we can accomplish that. And so with that, I will take a minute and see if there are any questions.
Well, Ms. Pettigrew, thank you for that very thorough presentation, and I'm suspecting there's going to be some questions or comments surrounding this, because I believe we have a couple of other elements to your presentation this morning.
Correct.
Very good. So I'll look to the board for discussion. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. You had talked about the case management system and implementing that. This is clearly a goal of yours going forward. I was curious if there's a timeline you thought that that would take to implement, because it is new and there's a lot of information, I'm sure, to input to make it live for the public.
Thank you, Commissioner Buck. So I'll answer that in two parts. We have two project tracks happening. The first is case management system, which is mostly internally focused, thinking about how we serve our clients on litigation and general counsel work. There will be a need for some change management planning for that, because it does impact our clients in terms of how they potentially send requests to our office, how they would find our legal answers, look at our prior memos, and that includes all of you as well as commissioners. If you've sent us a legal question through a case management system or you want to see that memo, it will improve our ability to both find and send those requests. But it will be a change. It will be a new piece of technology. We're working with a project manager with technology services to think through all of those steps so that we can successfully launch that. My personal timeline would be in a few months from now, but again, that's dependent on a lot of moving parts, as well as buy-in from our clients and our staff. But my priority right now, and this is really the project that's a little more advanced than our case management system in terms of timelines, is the public records system. And that really is the one that will represent a significant change, not just for our internal clients, but also our external community member clients, the people who are seeking public records. Those are two different tech tools. They do both serve efficiency and cost reduction, but the case management system will largely be about our legal work, and so that work will not be visible to the general public. The public records system, on the other hand, will have really broad impact, and so in working with the project manager that has been assigned to that project, as well as our TS team that has been assembled to move that forward, we're now going to move into what's called the sandbox phase of the use of that technology. So we will hopefully have it for about a month to play with it, see how it works, see if we like it, see if it meets our expectations. After that month period, we will sit down and look at what the rollout needs to be. I'm thinking that will probably be 3 to 4 months after the sandbox period, so that we can really make sure that the people who are impacted, our colleagues here at Lane County, will be able to have all the tools and training that they need, so that when it goes live on our website and we start getting people sending in requests, we'll know what to do and we'll be ready. And I'm very, very grateful to Technology Services for their willingness to share that time with us and their expertise. If we were doing this on our own, it would be extraordinarily challenging. And they've been a fantastic partner, both in terms of looking at the security issues, but also thinking about things about education. How do we educate people about new technology? How do we give them the tools so that they can help themselves, and also give them the resource of who do you call if it's just not working for you? Who is that person going to be, and when will they be available? So I know that these changes can have impact, really mindful of that, but I'm hoping it will be within this year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Buck. Further questions or comments? Excuse me, Commissioner Lovell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, great presentation so far, Ms. Pettigrew, thank you. The thing that kind of struck my mind, my creative mind started going off a little bit when you said something about the vision and the purpose statement, and then the office retreat. Those two things kind of gelled in my head. The vision and purpose statement, you said you needed some input for developing. Might I add a couple of words to your thinking, because I'm hopefully thinking you're going to probably develop that over your retreat, is what I'm thinking. Accurate, understandable, collaborative, and fearless. That's what I would like to have some sort of notion on. And then if you're doing a office retreat, that fearless portion, I would suggest you include bungee jumping in your retreat, so you could get to that point very quickly. So thank you.
I'll check with our risk manager on that.
Risk management's all about it.
Well, you're using a lot of playground analogy today. I understand sandbox. We've always had a sandbox at home. So. Further discussion, Commissioner Senega.
Yeah, you mentioned meeting with elected officials. Were you thinking all the county elected officials in some sort of group setting, and workshopping, or, what were your thoughts on that?
That's an excellent question, Commissioner. Certainly in terms of creating good dialogue, I think a group meeting could be very helpful. I think each of our electeds have particular interfaces with our office that may not be the same, but have also some common needs and expectations. And I think that could be a really rich opportunity for a dialogue. So far, I have been having more one-on-ones, but it has been my intention, once we're fully staffed, to have what I would call a housewarming for our Office of Legal Counsel, and that could be a really nice time to welcome our electeds and have some dialogue about that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Krieger.
Thank you, Chair. Really appreciating all the thought and preparation put into this. And for the moment, I just want to say, too, how much, and you and I have had this conversation, I appreciate, it's helped me wrap my head around making a distinction between the Office of Legal Counsel for Lane County, as in the department, of which you are the leader, and your role as our county counsel. And that's just helped me as I'm listening to this presentation, as I read through the rest of the packet, as I have reflected back on the last few months of your performance here. It's just really been helpful. And I bring that up not only to make that statement, but to say that in all of your time here, you've really helped me sort of understand and think about the work product that comes out of your department and why that is in a very different way. And I think there's, by and large, the same general buckets of work product, but it hasn't always been as visible or as understood or as clear as to why that is or who's performing it and how it fits together. So I'm just really appreciating how much you're helping us. I think about it much like, obviously structurally within the county it's different, but our new elections clerk. We've always run really integrous elections that conform to the best practice of the time, but those change as time moves on and new technologies become available. And now the person that we have in that role not only performs that job so well, but is really excited to help other people understand why it matters that it be performed or organized the way it is. And that's really exciting to me, and I think a really important part of when we talk about transparency within the organization and for the public of the work that we're doing. And so thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Krieger. And I got a couple more things to add. As I stated earlier, Ms. Pettigrew, this is about your goals, and I think you've done a superb job of giving us a set of goals to begin with, and really is comprehensive in its approach. I'm first going to respond to a little bit of something that Commissioner Krieger said regarding your first few months on the job and ability to see how county council works and how county council operates. I spent, this is my 10th year, actually this is my 11th year watching county council work. So, I've developed my own set of ideas as to what works effectively and what needs to be more fine-tuned, shall we say, or even broadly tuned. I also worked for 10 years as a city councilor with the City of Eugene's council, both as when it was Harang Long external council, and then as it transferred over to internal council. So I've seen the difference between external council and internal council, and the effectiveness and what is most effective for boards as well as the organization. And really, there are two sets of expectations there. What can this Board of Commissioners expect from you? And what can the general public, the 380,000 people who rely on you and your decisions in Lane County? So it's, and I think your set of goals really gives us a good look at, what do we need to do, what can be done, and how can we perfect the Office of County Counsel to make it more responsive to the needs of not just this board, the next board, whatever board, but also to the people of Lane County and to the staff who we all serve. The 3,000 people approximately who work for Lane County, 2,000 people, thank you, approximately 3,000, more like 2,000 people who work for Lane County. And we all have expectations, needs, and really our day-to-day life is in no small way impacted by the effectiveness of your office. And this set of goals, I believe, helps us to focus on a very effective office. In attachment F, which is provided today, this is attachment B that we're looking at right here. Attachment F gives us it's called examples of previous county council goals. I'm going to strike that term, and just that there are 4 bullet points there that talk about just kind of general tenets, not necessarily just of a council office, but of an office that responds to, that works with a board. And the first is to continue to provide sound legal advice, and this is a big one for me, excellent customer service to the board and county departments. And that's the division that I talked about. Part of the division is the board and the county departments. The second bullet point is to bring more information about all sides of issues and request for the board's consideration when they're making decisions. The fourth bullet point is to ensure the board can distinguish between the legal advice being provided versus comments or opinions that are policy-oriented. Keep the focus on how best to support the board in achieving its objectives. And finally, is to pursue continuous improvement. And I think we have a good stage set for this being not a part of the goals, more than goals. This is more the internal process that we all abide by and live by. And I thank you, Ms. Holmes, for providing attachment F, which is anybody watching online can plug it in, pick it up. It's attachment F that I just read from. So with that in mind, one part of that was that bring more information, to the Board of County Commissioners and to county departments. We have, how many departments, Ms. Moore? You don't need to tell me. We have a lot of departments, far fewer than we had before you came here because we consolidated departments. So we have department heads in different departments, many of whom are appointed by Mr. Mokrahajski. But we do have 3 departments. The heads are elected. That is the Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney's Office, and Assessment and Taxation. Now, Judge Walters said you're really good at thinking on your feet. And I'm paraphrasing what Judge Walters said about you. Supreme Justice, was very effusive about your ability. So I don't mind asking you questions that I've not prepared you for. This is a question regarding a potential fourth bucket or fourth goal. And that is to develop a strong relationship with elected county heads, with the elected county heads, which are very different to the appointed county heads. And the departments, while they go through the same budget process, and while Mr. Mokrahajski is the budget manager, budget director who is responsible for providing the budget, they are elected in a sovereign fashion, each of the 3 elected heads. So you can think about that a little bit, and I'd ask you to see if you could, in your beautiful iterative way, before the end of our discussion today, can you maybe recite what that goal might sound like? Rather than using my words, because I'm not very good with words, other than when I'm quoting Hamlet, and I'm good at that. But so, and later on, if you could think about that, put a little bit of thought in, and respond right now if you wish to, if you feel that you can.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't agree more. I think that is a core function of this position, is to provide outstanding legal service. The foundation of that is trust. And I have an obligation and a duty and a responsibility to provide outstanding legal service to all of our electeds. And that includes building that trusting relationship. And so I would be glad to articulate that expressly within the goals here. And I think I'd like to think a little bit more about how we would measure that. But I think that part of that could be through the annual survey and my own 360 performance evaluation. But yes, I appreciate that reflection, and I'd be glad to add that.
Thank you. I'd love to hear it in your words as opposed to mine, because I like to quote people rather than have people quote me. So with that, the sheriff and the DA also, when they were elected, received more votes than all of us combined, each one of them, or if not, as certainly in that neighborhood. They're elected county-wide. They have a very high approval rating by the people who elect people. 5 times more than me, I'm only 20% of the number of people that voted for them. So to me, it's important that we're responsive to our elected officials, and that's each of the 3 elected officials that we have who operate in this building. The last question I have, and this is an exciting one, Ms. Nagels has been with us for a long time, and boy, Ms. Nagels has demonstrated a great ability to think on her feet, to bring changing viewpoints and to really address a lot of different sides of the issue. Congratulations on that selection, and congratulations on Ms. Nagels accepting that position. And Ms. Holmes, I'm presuming that your department worked closely with a job description that's been developed for that position. And
Correct, Chair. We work closely with County Council Pettigrew on the entire process.
And that job description, is that on file at this point in time, so we can review what that job description is? I don't know, it's not our job to even comment on the job description, because that is your purview. But I'm excited about that prospect. That is one of the coolest things I've heard in a long, 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 long time.
Well, I'd be glad to share with you, Chair, the job description. And I was hoping to announce to our Lane County community here today for the first time, but I will send out a written announcement to our community professionals so that they have the good news and a little bit more information about what our intentions are for the role of deputy.
Because I was going to remind you that if it was a secret, you just let the secret out.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a few people listening.
All restrictions are off. I can go and say, way to go, Andrea. All right, that is everything I had for this at this point in time. Anything further before we move along with the presentation? I think, I'm not sure, but the next presentation is talking about metrics a little bit and standards of review. So please continue.
Thank you, Chair. So I can cover this next piece briefly. As you know from looking at our budget work in the last couple weeks, each of our departments establish key performance measures based on their area of work, what the community need is, and determining those based on what really can be measurable outcomes. Because I knew that this conversation was going to take place with the board, it struck me as appropriate to present to you some of the revisions that I will be asking our budget manager to include in the final budget text. But before sending those, I wanted to just have an opportunity for discussion and to inform you of some of my thoughts on what the key performance measures should be for us as an office. As you know, that is the department leaders or heads' prerogative to determine those. But because we work so closely with the board, I thought it'd be very important for you to be able to understand those better, understand the changes that I'm proposing, and to offer opportunity for dialogue. So first, these are our past key performance measures, and I'm just going to walk you through those and give you a sense of why I changed 2 of them, not all of them. Bless you. So the first, 4.A, is the percentage of public records requests acknowledged within 5 calendar days. Currently, under ORS Chapter 192, that is a essential requirement of us as a public body. And so for me, we should be at 100%. And it really is a measure that I'm not sure really helps us evaluate our performance in terms of responding substantively and meaningfully to public records requests. And once we are able to launch this technology, those responses can be automated. So it's not really going to be much of a reflection of our legal work. And in the next slide, I'll show you in just a moment, not yet, what my proposal for revision would be. Under 4B, we have percentage of cost savings for in-house legal services compared to outside counsel. I found that this sentence didn't quite tell the reader what it is that we're measuring. And my understanding is historically how that measure was evaluated was essentially just looking at market value for the hours of our attorneys spent in doing legal services for the county. So basically, we would look at what the cost to the county was for the hours spent by attorneys, and then use the Oregon State Bar Economic Survey to look at what that would cost essentially retail, right? But again, that's not really a measure of performance. It's more a measure of the market. It is important for the county to know what the cost savings are by keeping legal services in-house. And I think that is an important function of our office, is to lower cost. Again, though, I do not believe that that really reflects performance. The final item I think is very helpful to look at, and that is how many trainings our attorneys and professional staff provide our broader community of professionals in preventing risk. That is, I think, a key function of attorneys, is providing education and support and understanding what our duties and obligations are as a public body in service to the community. And so, as you can see, over time, that has ebbed and flowed in terms of the number of trainings, but it has averaged around 20 or less per year. So if you could please move to the next slide. Thank you. So these are the revised key performance measures that I would like to publish in our final adopted budget. The first is what I believe to be a more meaningful measure of our performance in public records work, and that is our requests that have been completed within 15 business days. So that means that the person has made the request, we have given them what they were seeking, or we have provided them with an estimate, we are waiting for payment, and then we can deliver on that material. I think, again, that really shows the work that we are doing to service the public and how efficiently we're doing it. The 15 business day rule is a rule that's established in statute, and so that also is a measure of compliance with state law. The second pertains to our risk department, and that is the number of general liability claims. So that is tort claim notices or other claims that are made against the county that can be resolved within 30 days. I worked closely with our risk manager, Lisa Lacey, to articulate that performance measure, and she would like to set that at 70%, which I think is ambitious and laudable, and she believes she can accomplish that. So very excited to put that up there. Under 4C, I have modified the training provision a little bit to just describe trainings. And the reason I did that is I think sometimes we provide trainings that aren't necessarily designed to reduce risk. They're really for education. They're to provide context and understanding, and I think that's also valuable to Lane County. As an example, we've talked about having Attorney Marcus Fahar give a presentation on the civil commitment process and Lane County's role in the civil commitment process. The outcome of that training may or may not reduce risk or exposure, but it is valuable education, and it's valuable information that I would like to share both with this board and anyone listening in the community about our role. And so for that reason, I've modified 4C. And lastly, this pertains to the annual survey that we talked about earlier today. This would be another measurable outcome, measurable deliverable. The percentage of clients and customers ranking legal and risk services at meets or exceeds on overall timeliness, accuracy, helpfulness, and expertise in an annual survey. And we are hoping that we can meet and exceed by 70%. Now, certainly, that's not the score I want. I want a much higher score, but this will be our first annual survey. And we want to, keep our expectations reasonable for ourselves. And that will be an aggregate number, meaning all of those buckets, accuracy, helpfulness, timeliness, that will be, again, aggregate of all those ratings. So I hope that provides some context in terms of not only what I'm hoping to accomplish as an office, but these also informed how I describe some of my own personal goals for my performance evaluation.
Well, very nicely stated and very nicely outlined, or laid out, excuse me. Before I look to the board, I have a quick question. That is regarding one of the performance measures that was dropped completely, and that is the percentage of cost savings for in-house legal services compared to outside counsel. Can you explain dropping that completely or how that will be addressed?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the question. The reason it was dropped completely is because I, again, don't believe that the way we were measuring it was actually a measure of performance. It was really just a measure of the difference between what the county pays for in-house legal services versus what we would pay for the same service if we were to pay an outside lawyer. And how that was calculated is, as I understand it, this is of course before my time, we took the total number of attorney hours based on years of experience of each attorney, compared that to the Oregon State Bar Economic Survey, and essentially created what would be a retail cost for the work performed. Again, I don't know that that really indicates whether we're performing successfully or efficiently, but I do think that's an important measure. And Lisa Lacey does provide that measure to the board every year, and I believe it's within her annual report to the board. And so that information will still be provided to you as a body, but it will not be one of the measures of which our performance will be evaluated, because really that number doesn't really tell you how we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
A good response to that. And you've used the word retail several times, and it's been used several times today. I'm the only person in this room who actually chose retail as a career. I love retail. I understand retail. Retail is when you sell the nail to the person who's going to use the nail, not somebody who's going to describe how the nail gets used. So it's retail. But I spent my entire life is what I did when instead of becoming an optometrist, I became a retailer. So So that being said, that's customer service at its finest, is retail. But regarding, once again, back to 4B from the previous Office of Legal Counsel performance measures, you stated that that was actually calculated on how much we did save by using in-house as opposed to external use. But what about actually keeping track of how many dollars were spent on external counsel? Is that any place in your performance measure?
At present, no, and my understanding is it wasn't a part, and again, I wasn't creating those evaluations in the past, but my understanding is that that's not what went into the calculation previously. It could be something that we could consider. There is a challenge to that, though. As you know, some of our litigation, particularly if it's very, very specialized or very, very rare legal question that, only a handful of attorneys have expertise in, sometimes those cases come up, and Lane County needs to make that investment. And that's a valuable investment. It's worthwhile. Is it an indicator of our office's performance when those decisions are made? My answer to that is no. My answer to that is I think that's just an unfortunate necessity sometimes when litigation arises and it's a particularly complex case. I think there are other ways of looking at historical practice, trends, and I think that could be something that would go into a quarterly and then maybe annual litigation report that would be appropriate to share with the board. I think it's very important to be mindful of cost and thinking about how we efficiently use resources. But there are times where those outside counsel resources are absolutely necessary, and that is through no fault of our office or the management of our office. And so I'd want to think carefully about how we could include such a query in a performance measure.
Thank you for that response, because clearly some of the recent outside counsel that's been used for litigation, for specialized purposes, such as opioid litigation.
Correct.
And such as indemnity litigation. The things that really are outside what you could expect an in-house legal office to be able to address on a regular basis. And sometimes it lasts for years. And that's not, there are a lot of hours in a year, and I think you all tend to charge by the hour, is that right? So, that being said, thank you for that response. And I may have more questions about that, about how we can keep track of that, or keep it in an equitable fashion, or in a reasonable and understandable fashion, how we keep track of that. So move along to the rest of the board. I'm sorry for jumping on the bandwagon first. Who's next? Nobody's next. So, very good. Back to you, Ms. Pettigrew.
Well, that concludes my portion of the presentation today. And I welcome further dialogue, both here in this setting as well as in our one-on-ones. And just want to thank you for your time and your input today. I appreciate all the comments and questions. They're really helpful, and I look forward to working with our partners at HR and reevaluating these items, adding some, and thinking through how we'll present your approval moving forward.
Right on. Then I'd stated that my goal for today was to come up with an order for you to write. We may have a little bit more discussion before we get to that point, but hopefully we can get to achieving that particular goal today. And regarding that additional one that I had suggested, I've not asked the board what they think about it yet. So, Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to reflect. I appreciate you kind of drilling down on that inside versus outside counsel question, and your responses just to me were another example of requiring us to think separately from the performance of a department and how you measure that performance and your performance as the lead of that department. Because I would imagine that those kind of questions of cost containment and specialization and time management are your daily practice, as they are for our administrator, as they are for all of our department heads, elected and appointed. And so that idea of key performance measures for the office helps give me insight into what is your day-to-day work. Oh, it's about identifying those key performance measures and assessing how we're doing, how your department is doing against them day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-over-year. So that was just another, I appreciate the chair drilling in because it just gave a sort of real-life, real-time example of the distinction between the key performance measures and why we have them for a department as separate from the performance of the leader of that department. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Then I'll move along. I'm sorry. The hand hand raised? No. Oh, you do have your hand raised?
Yes,
Yes, then Commissioner Buck.
thank you, Chair.
We're not done.
You had mentioned, talking more about adding an item for relationships with electeds. And it's extremely important. I'm pretty sure we all would agree about that. And you had talked about, okay, how do we measure that? Because that would be something that we would want to include. And does that mean responding timely, getting the information you need, being able to resolve a case, being proactive about options to either resolve or direct it in another direction as necessary? I guess I would like to flesh that out to ensure we've got it down the way that we want.
And I'll respond to that, because since it's my request and my initial broach on that, can you bring it back up, the goals, attachment B, I believe it was? And while we're getting that up, attachment B, yeah, we each have the goals in front of us anyway. So actually, none of these goals actually have measurements attached to them at this point in time. And that would go along with what you're stating regarding what is the measurement regarding the relationship with other elected officials. So I would hope, and this is a part of my next discussion, is that subsequent to what we asked Ms. Holmes to do today, we do have an opportunity to get together as a board and actually come up with Ms. Pettigrew how do we measure and track progress toward these goals? And are there points in time associated with them? Are there numbers associated with them? I don't know yet, because we've not fleshed it out, and we don't really have. That wasn't today's agenda. That's not today's agenda, is to look at the numbers and, the performance measures. But it is certainly a part of the goals. So does that answer that question all right?
Yeah, a little bit. We haven't fleshed this out in the past that I'm aware of, like a measurement of goals before too, and that could be an important conversation to have subsequently. It's clear that, say, office reorganization, you'll know when that ends, right? Because that will probably be something that you've designed and and can demonstrate that. And so that's, I guess, something it just requires probably another conversation, not to inhibit this goal setting from proceeding further, but just to ensure that we're all on the same page of what it means to accomplish the goals for the year.
Excellent. And I'll take that into account. So what I'm going to state then is I'm going to see if this works for the entire board, with the instructions that I'm going to give to you as draft instructions, shall we say. So you've given us options, and what I would ask is that you would, Ms. Pettigrew, I'm going to ask you to state out, use your words in some fashion to talk about the additional goal that I'd asked for, which I'll ask the board if we can ratify that. But so Ms. Holmes will ask you to prepare a board order in the matter, let's see. I'm off my page, I'm sorry. To move forward, create a board order for consent calendar that will document the county council's goals for initial performance review during the period ending July 21, 2024, based on today's discussion of these goals right here, which are unchanged. There was no discussion regarding changing the verbiage of these, but potentially with the addition of a fourth bucket, which is regarding other elected officials. Does that sound all right to the rest of the board, the instructions that I've just given to Ms. Holmes? Vice Chair.
My question is, how is your request different from the first bullet in the first bucket, providing timely, well-researched, and collaborative counsel to client departments and electeds?
Well, I view that as the electeds, as departments and electeds, and I look at that as these electeds that we're looking at right here. And I'm being very specific about very specifically the three departments that do have elected heads. This one body is elected, 20% of us are the head of this department. In those departments, there's one person, and so I want it to be called out very specifically for those three departments.
Maybe I have a suggestion. Since it does say electeds, you could say including sheriff, assessor, and DA. Just so it's clear. Or you could say Commissioners,
unelected.
yeah, you could spell, in parentheses.
I think, personally, and this is subject to somewhat of other people's opinion, but I think it's worthy of a separate bullet because once again, these are people who are elected countywide. They do run their departments as a separate, I'm going to use the term sovereign, as as a separate from the way we run the balance of the county, other than Mr. Mulcahy does prepare their operating budget. So I feel it is, I like to call it out as something separate, not just lumped in with the Board of County Commissioners, but actually 3 other departments, so.
If I may respond, Chair.
Please.
My intention was to be inclusive in describing electeds as all electeds within Lane County, but I'm not opposed to discussing the need for relationship building among all electeds within Lane County as well, which I think, collaborative council, my intention, of course, was about relationship building, right? Creating that trust, making sure that people feel that I'm giving them the outstanding service and the relationship that feels as one of trust. So I just wanted to provide that clarification as to my intent.
And I appreciate that intent. To me, electeds, right there, it doesn't tell me if it's elected to the school board, elected, it doesn't specify anything other than it just says electeds there. And I wish in my request to be very specific about the 3 department elected heads in Lane County, the sheriff, the DA, and the assessor. And to have that actually called out, because it really is a topic for separate discussion. And, working with the sheriff, you don't have the same set of, the LCSO doesn't have the same set of needs as the assessor's office, but they do have specific sets of needs that are very different to the Board of Commissioners. I don't have a badge, and I don't try cases, and I don't tell you how much you're going to pay this year in taxes. These are very specific things that I believe it's important that Lane County Council, which reports to the Board of Commissioners, it is inherent that you provide timely collaborative counsel to the people who hired you. These people didn't hire you. They're separate.
May I make a suggestion?
Please.
Thank you, Chair. I would be happy to and again, happy to also refocus on relationships as well, or add that as an additional word in an additional bullet point. But we could create a parallelism, which is provide timely, well-researched, and collaborative counsel to client departments and the Board of County Commissioners, and provide that same service, expectation, timely, well-researched, and collaborative counsel to those 3 electeds.
That would satisfy my request. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that way you don't have a 4th bucket. It all is included in what is really a very broad top bucket, provide high quality legal. Yeah, that's cool. I'm fine with that. So the rest of the board okay with that? Then my instructions to you, and it seems to be okay by the board, that you provide a board order for consideration at a future consent calendar, or pulled from, because we do reserve the right to pull things from the consent calendar, but as we did today, that includes these goals that are stated in attachment B, with the addition of the bullet point that the clarification on the first bullet point under provide high quality, and the addition of another bullet point which includes the 3 separate elected department heads. Is that clear and concise? Now, the other thing that you mentioned, Commissioner Buck, is that we're not talking about metrics, measurements, because each one of these has a different type of measurement, different way of looking at it. Some of it's very easy. Do we have a manual or don't we have a manual? Right. Yes or no? But others may have numbers and scales and times involved. So it may be appropriate that we have a subsequent discussion with the Board of Commissioners, a subsequent work session where we do actually talk about the metrics and give you a chance to work on them to make recommendations to us. The metrics that you will be looking at as we progress toward July 21st, 2024, and sometime in August, I don't know if there's a date specific, which is the date of the informal review. Is how it's stated in the packet. Very good. Then, is there anything else for the order of this item on the agenda? Anything else you'd like to add to the Board of Commissioners? Are we cool with everything? Is it all clear and direct and we're ready to go?
Do we need to formally make a motion for you, or you just, this is good enough?
It's, let's see, recommendation, instruct the chief, we can make it through motion if you wish, or we
I
can
mean,
just
there
make it.
isn't a board order associated with it.
There is not,
but-
no. So if this is adequate, then it's codified by recording.
Guess there'll be a subsequent board order, so.
Yeah.
Chair Farr, Commissioner Buck, indeed, I do believe the direction that I've received suffices for today. The vote will be on the board order that does come back on consent calendar.
Very good.
Thank you.
We all have some level of that hoarseness that you're exhibiting.
Unfortunately,
And
yes.
Ms. Pettigrew last week
Battling
had,
with
felt like strep throat. I understand. I couldn't even, well, anyway, we're not here to talk about medical conditions. We all suffer from. Very good, then. Anything else that you need from us, Ms. Holmes?
Not at this time, Chair.
Ms. Pettigrew?
No, thank you, Chair.
Very good. Well, a good work session today, and we'll look forward to the work together and looking at the next time when we talk about the actual measurements, timing, et cetera, regarding the goals that we've established. Perfect. Then this concludes that item.
Thank you.
And now we have an 11 o'clock time certain. Excuse me, we do have a couple of other things. Actually, while you're here, Ms. Pettigrew, you're next on the agenda. County Council, do you have any announcements?
Well, I think I've stolen all my own steam. I was planning to come here and announce to you today when I will repeat it, because it bears repeating, the delight that I have in sharing that Andrea Nagels will be our Deputy County Counsel for the Office of Legal Counsel. This is the first time our office has had a deputy position. And many of our sister counties have deputies in that role. It's a really critical role for cross-training, coverage of the office, and additional collaboration and just creative thinking on how to solve problems. And so I'm very, very pleased that Andrea is taking the leap and taking on this additional leadership position. And please join me in congratulating her once again. And then I also just wanted to thank our collaborators for the Office of Public Records training. We had a lot of support from HR, particularly the HR training team, Emily Maxon, AJ Nair from Technology Services, as well as our hosts at Health and Human Services. It was a fantastic presentation. I think we probably could have talked for 3 hours about public records if we had had the time. And I expect that our presenter, Yufeng Luo, will be back for Chapter 2. And she has encouraged us to, collaborate more. She'd be happy to come back to Lane County, coming down from Salem anytime. So that's it for me.
Well, thank you. And I'm presuming that the deputy is in no small way succession as well, in case you were abducted by aliens on your way out of the door.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is correct, Chair. And
Excellent.
I expect that Andrea Nagels will be serving as AIC whenever I am unable to serve. So.
Superb. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from Ms. Pettigrew? Nope. Then we'll move down the agenda. Thank you very much. To County Administration, Mr. Mokraisi, do you have any announcements? Nope. Moving right along.
Just a quick elections update. Today is the deadline for ballots postmarked by Election Day to be received. So if they were in the mail and postmarked on Election Day, they have to be received today to be counted. There are over 900 challenge ballots that can still be cured. The Postal Service delivered 90 cure letters at the end of the day yesterday. So the team is busy curing those ballots to ensure that they're processed and included in tonight's results. The dashboard, the elections dashboard that our team has created will be refreshed to reflect the updated challenge cured numbers. The deadline to cure a challenge ballot is June 6th. So if you have been contacted by elections to cure your ballot, that deadline is June 6th. And then beginning May 31st, the list of challenge voters becomes publicly available. That is that's next Wednesday for that list to become available. And the results will be updated tonight and then again on Friday. So that's our elections process. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, that's pretty cool because butchers cure bacon and doctors cure medical conditions and elections cure ballots. I love it.
They do, that's right, yeah.
Right on. Any questions or comments from Mr. Mokraisi? Is that everything for announcements today? Then we do have an executive session, which is an 11 o'clock time certain, so we have a little bit of time in between. We could conduct other business. Do we have any other business to conduct at this point in time? I see, other than we will reserve the right to come out, of course, in executive session. Is there anything the board wishes to attend to before the 11 o'clock time certain? If not, we have a 20-minute hiatus between now and the time we reconvene. Very good, then I will read us into executive session. The Board of County Commissioners will meet in executive session to consult with counsel regarding the rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. This executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.6602H, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. We reserve the right to come back out into public session should the need arise. At the sound of my gavel, we will recess the Board of County Commissioners and reconvene in executive session at 11 a.m. in the BCC conference room, following which we will return for a time certain at 1:30 in Harris Hall.